big week for AMP. Seriously, there's just so much going on.
Isn't there?
It's
Well,
crazy.
it's been a huge week for us, which is
Yeah.
really exciting because we've also, this weekend we've got our first womb walks, which we're really excited.
Yeah,
So
for
hoping that
sure.
many menstruators will come and join us and just to come and really just have a chat, right? It's really about creating community.
Yeah, I think for so long, like we have not had connection, obviously, since the whole COVID thing, and we won't bang on about that. But it's just so important to kind of bring the community together and, have a really nice event where we can all connect and chat and walk around the tan. And if it
Yeah.
does rain, I actually haven't checked the weather program yet, but if it does rain, we'll have a backup and we'll let everyone know as well. And we'll go to a rotunda and just have a chat.
Yeah,
But yeah, so
perfect.
yeah, I might actually give some, I'll give some, PSA details around womb walks and where to register at the end of this, just for those who are joining at the tail end. Cool.
Great.
We've got quite a few on now. So we might actually kick off tonight. Now, this is our very last womb talks for the year. And it's a massive topic, and one that, so many people have actually asked us to talk about. Tonight, we're going to be talking about PMS and understanding our hormones. And, it's so funny because like PMS as a term just gets thrown around so much. And so many people often are like, oh, they're just PMSing or they're just in a bad mood. They're getting their period. And it's like, why don't we actually have better context around what's actually happening to our body and what it means just before we're about to bleed? And I think it's really, really crucial that we talk about our actual hormones, understand the, impact that's going on just before we bleed, so we can better kind of regulate and treat our PMS symptoms as well. A lot of it
Yes.
really is around awareness, and acknowledging what's going on with our bodies prior to us bleeding. So it's a really juicy topic. I think that, it's one that resonates with most people because we've all had PMS symptoms in some way, shape, or form. And some of us don't even know that we've had them as well, or that we have them, right? Like we just put it down to a bad day or feeling horrible. So it's really, really important that we kind of address some of the real fundamentals of what PMS is and just talk about our hormones. And as always, we will be taking any questions. So please just pop them in the chat and I will try and keep up with them as the night goes on. Just to also remind some of you, if you're new to Womb Talks, we've been running this series now for about 4 or 5 months, and it basically kicked off in COVID, where Mans and I just thought we should get together and chat about, all things menstruation, fifth vital sign, understanding our cycles. There's so much misinformation, debunking of myths that needs to happen around our menstruation, our reproductive system. And so that's part of AMP's mission, to really educate and empower all menstruators and individuals so we can just all become our own health advocate and better understand our bodies. So Womb Talks has been now running for a few months, like I mentioned. This is going to be our last one for the year, but we will be back with force early next year once everyone's had a bit of a break. And I will talk to Womb Walks and sort of the Womb Talks version that we're bringing IRL on Sunday, which I'm super pumped for. But I'll give the details for that a little bit later. So, Mans, I'm going to just dig in with a real base question and ask you, what is PMS?
Well, I mean, if we think about it, we're really cyclical beings. So we really represent nature, us menstruators, and we have these seasons that follow our cycle, which is like our hormones. So we have these ebbs and flows. And so PMS, as we know, is essentially broken down into not please make it stop, but premenstrual syndrome.
Although you feel like please make it stop sometimes, hey?
You really do. And so it's essentially a group of symptoms that we experience in the second half of our cycle after ovulation, which is known as our luteal phase. And so the type of symptoms that we often experience is we notice mood changes, anxiety, depression, breast tenderness. We can have water retention, low energy, fatigue, and also we can have painful periods when our period does arrive, and cramping. And so a lot of the time there's sort of a lot of, I guess, misrepresentation about how PMS forms, what is PMS, and essentially, so it is a hormonal imbalance. And we produce progesterone in the second half of our cycle after in our luteal phase. And so often it's described as estrogen dominance or with a low progesterone, which isn't always the case. And so depending on what type of symptoms that we have and conditions, if we have endometriosis or adenomyosis, fibroids, then those symptoms can sometimes be exacerbated even more.
Yeah, and you mentioned something just then because you were like obviously listing out all of the symptoms, which I've had, I think most of us here have had in some shape or form. And like, you know, and you also said about like a hormone imbalance. Is that normal? You know, is that
No,
part of our cycle?
True. It's really common for us menstruators. So is it normal? No, it's not. And I think that what we've sort of really lost over a lot of these years is education. Education really about our menstrual cycle and the health of our menstrual cycle, because when we're connected into our body and we're connected into our cycle, we can start to notice those subtle changes within us, those physical changes, those mood changes. And it's really our body's way of telling us that we need to take some time to understand what's actually going on and what's impacting our health and our well-being. And I mean, that's part of our mission, really, isn't it? To educate every menstruator about the importance of their fifth vital sign. And so our menstrual cycle is really our guide to tap us into our intuition. That's our superpower, right? Because then we can navigate our lives better and be able to regulate our lives around our cycle and know when to pull back, when to actually, and what foods to eat to help to support our hormones. So we, as menstruators, can be incredibly thriving beings. And I mean, as you know, I know. So if if I'm working way too hard and I'm stepping outside of my boundaries, which interestingly, adenomyosis is to do with boundaries, right, is that I feel exhausted leading into my period, and my PMS symptoms are more exacerbated because, interestingly, the liver circulates around our reproductive organs and it finishes at our tissue, at our breast tissue. And so if our liver's not functioning optimally and it's not able to metabolize our hormones and our estrogen effectively, and also too, the emotion that affects the liver is stress. And so we can see that then that exacerbates our liver function, that exacerbates our mood, so we become more stressed. And when we're stressed, we don't really want to opt for eating the best type of foods either, do we?
Gosh, no.
And then we don't really want to exercise either. So it kind of has a real domino effect impacting us on every level, physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Yeah, it's so right. Like there is definitely that domino effect. And I've actually personally just experienced it myself coming into this bleed where I felt just super stressed, super exhausted. My bleed is absolutely off the charts, but my PMS was just.
Hang on,
I think those causes that. Oh, we're on the move. Good.
No, I'm just
Are you all right?
my phone. My phone's playing up. Hang on.
That's okay. No worries.
Maybe this will be
All
better.
good.
Okay.
Are you good? Are you with us?
Yeah.
Cool. I was just
I'm
saying
with you.
that,
Okay.
like that domino effect is so relevant to what, I mean, I've personally just experienced it. And I think some of the causes that you've just listed are really important that we probably just need to break down a little bit because you think.
Yes. Yeah. And because It really is. Yes, that is. Um,
Our audio's dropped out, man. So just, we might actually, if you can all just hold a second, I might restart it. Have a bit of a
can
tech
you hear me now?
difficulty. I can hear you. Can everyone hear us? Yeah? Can someone give us a bit of feedback? Still can't hear.
Still can't.
Amanda, maybe we can join. Let's
Hang on.
rejoin.
Let me just see if this will work. We'll do the house. I am going to need to get a new phone. You can hear us now? Can you hear again?
Us. Yay!
Yeah.
Woo! All right. Thanks, everyone. Sorry about the tech difficulty. Okay,
All
awesome.
right.
Thanks for giving us the feedback. I'll just backtrack slightly so we've got it.
Sure. Yeah.
You've also gotten a whole tour of Amanda's house whilst we're on this. But I'll just go back a little bit to what I was saying around some of those causes of PMS, right? And how it's really important to review our entire kind of being throughout our cycle. So not just when we've got our period, but prior to our period and then post our period as well. Like, what is our lifestyle like? What stresses are going on? What's happening to our bodies? What foods are we eating? The exercise that we're doing? These causes can all impact PMS. And so I think it's really important to be kind of tracking, obviously, holistically our lifestyle in order to try and improve and optimize our PMS symptoms, right? And essentially, hopefully not get them at all. Yeah?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's also too, I think, so much of it's to do as well with our, our HPO axis, our hypothalamus pituitary ovarian axis, and is that it's such a delicate system, and that so much of what we actually do impacts that. And it's the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus is what reads what's happening externally to then what's going on internally. So essentially, if we're living these lifestyles where it's high paced, we're not sleeping properly, then that's going to impact. And I think that that's what a lot of menstruators don't really understand, is how much of what we do throughout our lifestyle is actually impacting our hormones, from, like you were saying, the foods to eat, to the chemicals, to our products that we use on our skin, for our hair products, Botox, everything, right? It's all impacting the health of our hormones, and essentially then our gynecological region being our womb.
Yeah. And like, this may sound like a silly question, but I have to ask it because there's a lot of lifestyle things that you've just mentioned as like causes of PMS. Is there one that kind of stands out, or do they work all in unison? So it's like, for example, I sleep 4 to 6 hours for 2 weeks, but I'm eating really well. Is that going to actually impact, me? Is the lack of sleep impacting me more than other things, for example? Or is it just them all tied together that causes PMS?
It's what we do today affects us tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
essentially, everything that we're doing is impacting our hormones and our physiology. So if you're having, only a minimum of 4 hours sleep every night, impact that over your cycle is that by the time you're leading into after you've ovulated, that can affect the way that you ovulate. You may ovulate later because of the stress of the hormone cortisol. And then that will impact your bleed, how you are, your energy levels. We already know how much we're affected from when we have lack of sleep.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just interesting to know if there's one that kind of one cause that might stand out more than the other, but it sounds like it all kind of marries and plays in together.
Absolutely, yes.
I just want to do a quick check-in because we tonight.
You're breaking out from me. Oh, damn it. This,
I think it's the
I can't
audio's
hear
gone again. I
you.
think oh
What I'm going to do is I'm just going to borrow Garth's. I'm just going to borrow Garth's phone.
okay, cool. Do you want to do that? And
I need your phone. I need your phone. Thanks. I might actually. Is Winnie's? No, I'll have to log in. Thanks. I'll just log in. Is that better now?
you're fine for time, but it seems like it's dropping out a lot.
Okay.
I think you're fine for me at the moment.
Let's just. Should we just do you want to?
Clara,
Yeah.
that's all right.
Do you want to reconvene? Is that better now?
Yeah, maybe.
No, I've got no.
Maybe let's. Okay, Steph can hear us. Steph said that they can hear us. Let's just keep going, and then if it drops out again, what we might do is log off and come back on and give it a crack. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. So we've gone through. No, that's all right. So we've gone through what is PMS and what are the causes. Why is there such a stigma on PMS? Like, why such a stigma when, I guess, do you think it comes down to misinformation and a lack of education around what PMS is, and the fact that, we're not really necessarily all the time in tune with our bodies and what's happening and what's causing PMS? Like, there is just a real stigma around it, and it gets thrown around a lot. And why do you think that is?
I think, it's such a great question, is that we have to really look back at the history of women's health and how women's health has really been treated in terms of like the lack of research. Most research is actually done on males. And so then they base that on females. And so we're not really sort of getting a true picture. Plus they're not really understanding the impact of what the hormones are doing to us. And I mean, it's like hysterectomy, right? Which was hysterical. So it's just that when we have been experiencing excruciating pain related to our menstrual cycle or related to our gynecological conditions, there's been such a misunderstanding of that. And so it's just like, oh, let's just throw it out there. Oh, she's hysterical. She's crazy.
Yeah.
And we're actually not. And what we feel and experience is very much real. And I think we really need to acknowledge that. And that's where the conversation, not okay just to say, oh, she's on her period, is that most of the time, when we are experiencing those types of periods and those hormonal fluctuations, is that it's very much out of our control. And I know that there's been times where we've all experienced it. It's almost like a rage, right? Or a really low drop in hormones that you go to. It's like a baseline, because the hormones is it's for our mood. So it helps with serotonin levels. And if we've got a dysregulation with our hormones, that serotonin then affects the way that we metabolize estrogen through our liver. So we get these pendulum swings, and that's where we sort of get the PMDD, which is the premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And so, I mean, Western medicine doesn't understand how to treat that. And so it's really where we're going through extreme hormonal fluctuations and then understanding how we can actually manage those symptoms, which then comes back to so much of that lifestyle factor. And really looking after our bodies with what we put into it through food, thoughts, everything, right?
Yeah.
Our environment that we're in. Like, are we in abusive relationships? Is that impacted? That impacts us. Toxic workforce, right?
Yeah.
All those things.
Yeah, totally. And so you've just mentioned two really important things that I think we need to touch on. One is around like what actually is happening to our hormones during PMS. So you've touched on that, but I think if we can try and break that down really simply. And then the other thing that I want just a definition of and to be really clear of is PMDD. So maybe let's talk about hormones and like simply break down what is happening to our hormones during PMS.
Okay, in our luteal phase, we need to have adequate amounts of progesterone to support our hormones. Essentially, what's happening in our luteal phase is that the body's going into an incubation phase, ready for the possible fertilization for an egg. And so we need, when we have adequate amounts of progesterone, that helps to support our moods. It also helps to create a receptive endometrial lining. And so if we're deficient in progesterone, then we can say that there's like an estrogen dominance basically, or dysregulation. And so those types of symptoms that we experience then is things such as breast tenderness. We can have swelling of the breasts. And if we have just breast tenderness on the side of our breasts, that is generally indicates a progesterone deficiency. Then, of course, we can have anxiety. So anxiety can then be caused from cortisol, an exacerbation in the stress hormone. And then if we're in high stress all the time throughout our entire cycle, is that we start to draw on the hormone, the adrenals, the adrenal glands. And one of the emotions around the adrenal glands is fear. And that's from a TCM perspective. So we have fear, anxiety, we're in a heightened state, high cortisol levels. That then affects our pineal gland. Our pineal gland is for our sleep regulation, right? It helps with melatonin production, helps us to get a good night's sleep, circadian rhythms. That disrupts our sleep then. And so it then becomes this, basically washing machine cycle, which then affects, we produce the hormone aldosterone, which is a specific pathway from pregnenolone. I won't go into that because it's too complex. That means that then because we have high cortisol, we go into holding weight. We also then go into holding fluid in our body, and then fatigue, of course. And then our moods, whether it's anger, depression, rage.
Yeah. So like everything that you've just said really does link back to what you mentioned earlier around it being this domino effect, right?
Yeah,
like one thing
totally.
leads to another.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. Yeah.
Because you've experienced it, right?
Oh, constantly. It's like a roll-on effect. Eat something bad for a couple of days in a row and you don't exercise, and then you don't sleep very well, and then you're moody, and then you get anxiety and you're like, why do I have anxiety? I haven't had that in 10 years, but it is this effect that just kind of rolls on. And then, it can roll on then from obviously when you're experiencing PMS into your actual bleed, it's like a complete domino effect.
You're so right. Right. It's like that. Yeah, exactly. It's that. And that's the thing, right? It then becomes month after month after month.
Yeah.
Which, it's like, okay, am I actually looking? And that then becomes more exacerbated, which then can lead to more chronic issues, chronic conditions, chronic fatigue. So, I mean, our biggest thing at AMP really is teaching menstruators to understand the communication of their body. What's your body actually telling you? What do I need to do this month? What can I reflect on? What can I change?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I do want to come back to PMDD, but I just want to kind of go into, because you've mentioned obviously our mission here at AMP, but maybe we should actually talk about our tincture and how the PMS tincture can actually get to the root cause of some of your symptoms, or most of your symptoms.
Guys as well.
So do you want to talk a little bit? Oh, there it is. Well done. Here's one I prepared earlier. Do you want to talk about PMS?
So, I mean, this... Absolutely. So the PMS tincture, it's an infused formula, which basically helps to balance your hormones throughout your entire cycle. And what's really great about our tinctures is that we take our tinctures every single day of the month. We take them twice daily, morning and evening, because by taking them each day, it has a cumulative effect. So you really start to see the benefits from cycle to cycle. And ultimately, our goal is so you start to thrive and you actually have hormonal balance, which then supports your gynecological health. And that's also then reflected in the health of your period, which is great because that's something that we can see each month. And I mean, T, tell me, like, you've had such a great result from using the endo tincture.
Yeah, and I was just actually going to say something really important that I did learn from when I first started the endo tincture is that it's actually about ongoing use, and it's in conjunction with, so you have to sort of use it, ongoing, but you start to see the differences after like week 1, week 2. You notice difference in mood swings. Your actual body feels different, bloating's reduced, like my actual pain in my breasts and swelling all over my body reduced. But it definitely comes with ongoing use. Plus, you need to combine it with those lifestyle changes.
Yes.
It's a whole kind of holistic plan that you have to really implement and be dedicated to doing, and implementing in your life in order for it to make an impact. But yeah, I definitely noticed that because naughty, I work with AMP. I stopped taking my endo tincture for, I think it was about 2 weeks. It was sort of in lockdown, and I really noticed a difference. I noticed a regression from all the progress that I'd made from taking it for a good year, consistently. And it is a spiral effect too, because you stop taking your tincture and then you're like, oh, I'll just eat a little crap. And then you don't sleep very well. And then you get anxiety. And it's like this whole thing. It's like, and then your life's just like, oh my God, I've got to start again. But I think the good thing about it is that, once you do start to regularly use your tincture, you start to notice the difference in the impact pretty immediately. Within the first week or 2, you start to notice the changes on it with your body, and also your mood and your hormones overall.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
so, and in this tincture, so specifically designed to support your liver metabolism. So we have a herb in this one, which is peony by Shao. And peony, on the research, basically it reduces prostaglandins. And so prostaglandins is what line our endometrium. And so when they're inflamed and there's a high amount of prostaglandins, that can cause too much cramping and pain. So peony also, from a TCM perspective, helps to soften the liver. And when you see peonies, right, they are such beautiful, beautiful flowers, and it connects you into your feminine as well. Not only that, but it basically helps to support painful periods, and it also reduces inflammation. When it's combined with another herb, which is blurpurum, which is chai hu, those herbs combined together help to metabolize your liver, so basically helping with your excess estrogen levels. And then we also have a couple of herbs in there which can help to support balance your progesterone levels. Dongui, which is the female form of ginseng, and donggui's got lots and lots of research. It's a herb that's been used over 2,000 years in China. It helps to promote healthy blood flow, and it also helps to reduce inflammation, cramping, clotty periods. And we also have another herb in there, xiangfu. Xiangfu basically helps, it goes the liver meridian, so it goes to the breast tissue. It also helps, it circulates around the reproductive organs. And so essentially what happens is that when the liver becomes stagnant in Chinese medicine, everything stops flowing, right? And so our period becomes disrupted, our mood becomes disrupted, because stress is and anger relate to the emotion of the liver. We start to get tenderness in our breasts, we get bloating because the liver becomes overactive and it attacks the spleen, essentially like an angry lion.
The gremlin.
The gremlin, right?
Yeah.
And so when the gremlin comes out, and so this tincture here helps to support and balance your hormones and really works on your entire liver meridian, so you can be in flow. Because when we're not in flow, right, we start to notice all those things displaying throughout our cycle. The health of our period, which then has a domino effect into our follicular phase, coming up to ovulation. So the PMS tincture is really great because it supports the entirety of your menstrual cycle. So not only from your period, but into your follicular phase, ovulation. So you can essentially be in flow. That's what we want you to be. So your liver's functioning optimally, so you can metabolize all your hormones, better for bile production, for food, all of that, right? Mood, everything. So it's the B's and E's.
Yeah. I think something that we should mention too, Mans, is just around obviously the PMS tincture, and tonight's about PMS, but the PMS tincture is a great sort of like all round for your cycle. But I think something that we should mention, and please do check it out if you haven't already, we have a quiz on the allnaturalpharmacy.com.au website, and that quiz can help you identify what your symptoms are and lead you to the most appropriate tincture for you, because PMS obviously does give this overall kind of holistic solution. However, there might be a tincture that's more suited based on your symptoms. So just note that. And the quiz is free, obviously, to take on our website. So please go do it. It takes a couple of minutes. And it really does help you actually really even like reflect and think about what your own symptoms are, that sometimes you don't even stop and really think about it. You know, you go, oh, I've got, you know, runny bowels, and you're just like, okay, that's normal. We do have a couple of questions that I'm going to get to in a second. I just want to go back and touch on PMDD because you mentioned it, and I just want to make sure that you address what PMS is, but well, you've spoken about what PMS is, but what PMDD is in relation to PMS. Could you?
So PMS is premenstrual syndrome, and that is basically described as a hormonal imbalance and it's a group of symptoms that we experience in the second half of our cycle after we ovulate in our luteal phase. PMDD is a greater form of a hormonal imbalance, and sometimes too they say it's a psychological disorder, which I really think, well, there's just not enough research, right, for them to be fully able to understand the diagnosis. It's basically described as premenstrual dysphoric disorder.
Sorry.
So it's where we have really high highs and low lows. Where we can be suicidal, where we can be very, very depressed, not wanting to get out of bed. Really, it really debilitates our ability to be able to function as a human being after we come into our ovulation phase.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for clarifying that. And something that is important too that you just touched on is the fact that there probably isn't enough research, and with that does come misinformation, you know. So if anyone does have any questions, even post these womb talks, or if you come along to womb walks, it's a great forum for you to be able to ask those questions and try and help kind of diagnose your symptoms and what you're going through. Because, I mean, you just mentioned something really important, which is around mental health, right? And I guess we don't even link our mental health with sometimes our hormones and our periods. And so there's a whole other talk another time for that, but I think it's just really important to acknowledge what our bodies are going through and what our symptoms are. We've got, oh, sorry, you were going to say something.
No, you're good, T.
I want to acknowledge a couple of questions that are coming through just so I don't miss them. But so Sheikah's asked a couple. One is that you've got endo and adeno, and so which tincture should you go for? I mean, I would say go and do the quiz and see which symptoms are more prevalent, but Mans, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have both adenomyosis and endometriosis, so I use both tinctures throughout the month. This month particularly, I've had a really bad flare-up with my adeno. Lots of bloating because I've just been pushing myself beyond my boundaries. And so it's like your uterus just expands. It's like it's big because you're giving. So this month, what I normally do is after I ovulate, I take the adeno tincture and I take that for 2 weeks. And then as I come up to my bleed, I start my endo tincture. And the endo tincture I generally take for the 2 weeks for my bleed and then follicular, and then I do the adeno. The adeno is really beautiful. Adeno tincture helps to soften all the bloating. It's got peony in it, as I was describing before, and it's also got gunsow, which is licorice, and those two herbs combined help to reduce, there's some great research, help to reduce the adenomyotic tissue. Also too, interestingly, which we'll post about, but the size of my uterus has also shrunk. Which is amazing from using the tinctures over the last 2 years, which is massive, right? And then also too, the licorice helps to soften, and the Baishao together help to soften the cramping that you're experiencing, which then minimizes the heavy bleeding, because if we're losing a lot of blood over each period, of course, that impacts our iron levels, our energy levels.
Yeah, that's a great point to note because we do get asked that a lot if you can take both. And I think your method that you've just explained is really, really relevant to a lot of people and a lot of questions that we do get asked.
Yes,
She
yeah.
you also asked, is it normal to have periods twice a month lasting 10 days? I will just say one thing and then hand that over to Mans, but we have touched on in Womb Talks, we've touched on like what a normal period looks like. And we've also got a whole bunch of articles on our website under Womb Room, which acknowledges what a normal period looks like too. So please do go have a read and listen to the podcast as well. But Mans, go for it and answer that question.
Really great resources there, isn't there, T? So that way
Yeah.
you can be formed. So, so you can start to be your own health advocate. And when you know what a healthy menstrual cycle is, then you're able to educate your girlfriends as well. And I think that's where it's like you were saying, by having the womb talks, we can all get together and chat.
Yeah.
That's when, we can solve the world's problems.
Yeah,
But
totally.
basically, no, having two bleeds throughout the month is definitely, having 10 days of bleeding is definitely not normal. And that's something that you need to investigate. And that's why we want to educate you about the importance of being your fifth vital sign being your period. So then you can interpret what all your data is sharing with you each month, because you can then decode, okay, if I'm having heavy bleeding twice a month, that may indicate that I need to investigate a little further. What are those medical conditions that relate to bleeding twice a month? Is it fibroids? Is it adenomyosis? Is it endometriosis? So the health of our period is reflected in our gynecological conditions. And, so much people, I think, from the research that I've been doing even more recently, is that so many people talk about ovulation as the main event, and your period means nothing. And we know that when we go to the doctors and the gynecologists, they don't ask you about your period, right? We spend a third of our lifetime with our period. So it's information that's shared with us every single month. So we are really passionate about driving that home to you, driving it into your womb. Look at you, like you look at your poos, look at your bleed, right?
Totally. I've actually like creepingly started looking at my bleed a lot more. And you're right, like you do look at your poo, right? And you're like, oh,
Yes.
that's an odd color or whatever. And it's actually really important to look at what's going on when you're bleeding, noticing whether you've got clots, whether it's dark blood, if it's thick, if it's thin. There's, analyze it. And you're right, we do spend, I think it was something like, is it right, like 10 years of our lifetime bleeding?
Yes,
As
we spend a
menstruators.
third, right? So it's about,
Yeah,
on average, it's about 34 years with a period, right? Which is a
yeah,
third of
sure.
our lifetime.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it?
It
We
really
did.
is.
We've got another question. No worries, Shika. Thanks for your questions. We had a question earlier, which was around how to contend. I mean, you did acknowledge it, but I think maybe let's just loop back in case people missed it. But how do you contend with massive mood drops and fatigue leading up to your period? So what can you do to shift that?
Okay, so that's a really great question, is that we want to support ourselves from the time that we're having our bleed. So when we're bleeding, we're losing energy, we're losing chi, and we're losing blood. And blood also contains, as we know, nitrogen, phosphate, and so it also contains our essential B vitamins and iron. So replenishing yourself during your period, if you're losing that amount of blood and you're having big mood drops, is just to take it easy, just rest. That's what your period is essentially. Hormones reach baseline. Rest, replenish, rejuvenate, the 3 R's, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And yes. And so then coming into your follicular phase, making sure that you're really having nutrient dense foods with your nutrition, having your greens so you can help to metabolize your estrogen properly. So lots of your cruciferous. Also too, you need to contain food that's high in fats, good high fats, of course. That helps with our sex hormones. Making sure that you're also getting outside, getting vitamin D. And then as you come into your ovulation phase, once we've ovulated, is that the nature of the endometrium starts to change. And so our body actually needs to have 275 more calories in that second half of our cycle, in our luteal phase. So if we're not meeting our baseline calories plus that 275, is we're already going to be in deficit, and then we're going to be in deficit even more if we're exercising, throw in all the stress. So
Yeah.
really important to just sit with, you know, what does my body need for support, and then supporting it with that adequate amount of nutrition, because the serotonin is made in your gut. So making sure that you're on a good probiotic, a bone broth, if you're a meat eater, if not, you know, shiitake broth, a vegetable broth, just to help support your gut, the health of your gut. And then also too, you might need to actually just have some mood support stabilizers such as GABA, magnesium, because those basically help with the neurotransmitters in our brain. And also our gut has a lot of more neurotransmitters than our brain, so we want to support the health of our gut. So really they're key. They're key to, so we don't have those massive drops.
Yeah, and something that you just touched on, which I think is really important to bring up around, you know, our body actually needs a higher intake of calories prior to us bleeding. And the other thing is obviously, and something that you taught me, Mans, is, well, firstly, it's normal, obviously, to then want to eat more leading up to your bleed, and your body actually needs it. But the one thing that you did teach me too, ages ago when I first came to meet you, is that, like, if you are feeling fatigued and you've got that as a symptom of PMS, listen to your body and sleep. So if you are very active and you're getting up 5 days, 7 days a week and exercising, it's okay to also have a morning off, you know, if your body's like, hey, I just need a little rest, right? So it's just about actually listening to your body.
Totally. You know, and it's that simple, isn't it, T? It's just listen to your body.
Yeah.
Right? Totally. How many of us actually do that?
I do now, but I definitely didn't. I definitely haven't for like 35 years, unfortunately, you know. But
I had a client.
Yeah.
Well, I had a client in the other day, and she's like, you know, I'm running a marathon and I'm tired and I'm exhausted and I'm cranky and my husband's just not loving me at the moment. And I was like, babe, like, just take a day off, take a rest day.
Have a moment.
And we're not educated to do that as women. I think we're just, and menstruators, it's just push, 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 push. And that's where we have that total disconnect to our bodies, right?
Yeah.
Intuition.
Yeah, it is. And it's a societal kind of construct, right? And conditioning that we
is.
To keep pushing. So it's really good to be able to go, hey, do you know what? You can take a beat. Sleep in this morning, it's all right. Go for a walk instead of a run, you know?
That's it.
Yeah.
And you feel better for it, right?
You definitely do, for sure. I've got a few public service announcements before we wrap up. We don't seem to have any more questions from the audience. Mans, do you want to talk or say anything more around PMS before I kind of wrap this up?
Download your monthly report card.
Oh, yes, from our website.
From our website, start to track your cycle, start to listen to your body's intuition, internal inventory every day. And if you are having that hormonal fluctuations, is to really try the PMS tincture and then implement those lifestyle strategies and support, and you'll be thriving. You'll just be, you know what you'll be? Absolutely. You'll be in flow.
In flow for the entire month as well. It's going to be awesome.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Optimized. The optimized menstruator.
Yeah, definitely. Now, we've got a couple of, thank you so much, Mans, for that. That was really helpful to also just like break it down pretty simply around PMS and understanding our hormones. We do have a couple of things coming up this week. It's a massive week, and obviously there's Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and we haven't missed a beat with it. We have some really good offers that we're about to release. So we'll have a Black Friday offer as of Friday morning until the 29th of November, where you'll be able to subscribe to our tinctures for 12 months and you'll get 25% off. So it's essentially getting 3 months free on your subscription. So that will be valid for the Black Friday period. And then on Cyber Monday, we're going to release a deal where you can buy one, get one free for your fellow menstruator on our one-off tincture purchases. So please keep updated and keep in touch with us on our socials, follow us, and look out for the codes, because you'll just pop a code into the checkout for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. The other thing that's coming up, obviously, and Mans and I have spoken about it a little bit, is womb walks, which is essentially bringing womb talks IRL. And it's so exciting. See, Winnie's excited for it. She can't wait. And it's so exciting because actually we've done these womb talk series and it's been great. We've got a lot of feedback, but obviously they've been virtual. So it's really going to be a great thing to be able to bring the community together in person. Unfortunately, it's only in Melbourne this Sunday. We haven't gone national just yet, but we're doing our very first one around the Tan at 10 a.m. It's a free community event, and we really just want to get all menstruators and individuals together, connect, create a community conversation, and talk around our cycles and just life, you know. And so please do come and join us. There is a link to register just so we can keep track of numbers and not leave for the walk before everyone gets there. So there's a link on Linktree on our bio, so please register and come along. We'd love to meet some of you, or most of you, or all of you in person.
Yes.
and share a bit of conversation all around our cycles. So
and
please
not
do
even
join.
about our cycles, right? It's really just about
Everything.
getting together, right,
Yeah.
as peeps.
Absolutely.
And just walking and getting to create that really, I guess, intimate community where, it can, you know, we can share. If we want to talk deep, we can. And if not, we just want to have a chat. Yeah, let's just get together.
Absolutely.
I think a really beautiful way to end the year, and also too to celebrate AMP, like the launch of AMP in person with everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be awesome. So we look forward to seeing you all there on Sunday.
Thanks. Well, thanks
so much for your time, Mans. And thanks to those who stuck through all the technical difficulties. Like I mentioned, all the womb talks are actually available on our blog, on our website, but also on our YouTube channel, All Natural Pharmacy. And we've got a podcast that's available across all the podcast channels. So please do go there and listen to anything that may have been missed. Thanks so much for your patience and bearing with us with the tech difficulties. And we hope to see you all Sunday IRL.
Yeah. See you.
Have a great night. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
Bye.